Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be trying to get inside the head of Vladimir Putin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, using a recent interview that he did, and we'll be kind of dissecting his thoughts and worldview based on what he had to say.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and in particular his perspective on the war in Ukraine, how he sees the U.S., our relationship with Russia, and his vision for global affairs, basically.
Yeah, I think this is going to be so interesting.
And our goal is to be as objective as we can.
Absolutely.
Just present you with, his thinking as it comes across in this interview.
Right. His perspective is so important because it really shapes everything
Oh, absolutely.
about how Russia operates on the world stage.
Yeah. And possibly, helps us figure out how we can maybe move towards some sort of resolution in this conflict.
Right. It's all about understanding where he's coming from.
So one of the first things that really jumped out at me in this interview was his comments on Ukraine's statehood. And he said that, Russia's perfectly fine with Ukraine being its own country.
Okay.
But he insisted that its territory, cannot be used to threaten Moscow.
Okay.
Which kind of seems a little bit contradictory, given the current situation.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement. And, it really all comes down to how you interpret the word threat.
Right.
What does he perceive?
Yeah, what does that even mean?
As a threat to Moscow.
Right, because it could be.
Right. Is it the presence of NATO troops and weaponry?
Uh-huh.
Is it Ukraine's potential membership in the EU?
Yeah.
Or even just simply having a pro-Western government in Kyiv?
Right.
Any of those things could be perceived as a threat.
I see.
In his eyes.
Yeah, and this is all happening after 2 years of, just devastating war.
Exactly.
And the Russian occupation of Ukrainian territory.
It adds so much complexity to the statement because it's not just some kind of
Exactly.
theoretical thing.
Well, you're already kind of doing that. So what are you really saying here,
Right.
So moving on, he also talked a lot about the role of European nations in negotiations, to end the war.
Okay.
And he was emphasizing their importance.
Okay.
But then he went on to praise former President Trump's approach to Ukraine.
Interesting.
Describing it as direct and pragmatic.
Interesting.
So I thought that was an interesting kind of juxtaposition.
Yeah, that speaks to me about his understanding of maybe Western political systems.
Yeah.
And the different constraints that different leaders might face.
Yeah.
He might see European leaders as being much more constrained
Yeah.
by, their political landscape.
Absolutely.
And all the institutions.
All the different, yeah, absolutely.
That are in place.
Whereas with Trump, who, kind of just did whatever he wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Who was very unorthodox.
So just was like, I'm doing this,
Right.
Might be viewed by Putin as having more flexibility.
Right, like a freer hand, exactly.
Yeah, and he even went so far as to suggest that Trump genuinely wants to, find a solution and has, this freer hand to act.
It's a fascinating perspective because it shows that he really thinks about these things.
Yeah.
The individual personalities matter to him.
Yeah.
In international relations.
It's very much a personality-driven thing.
Yeah.
As far as he's concerned, it seems like, anyway.
Yeah. And to him, maybe that means that Trump would be easier to work with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Than, the kind of bureaucratic European Union.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he throws out this completely unexpected proposal where he calls for, the U.S., Russia, and China to each cut their military budgets in half.
That's a big one.
Yeah, like 50% across the board, which is just like, whoa.
Yeah, that could be a genuine desire for a global disarmament. Yeah. But it could also be...
Or just a way to...
attack,
to shift focus.
Yeah, like why are you guys spending so much when...
away from Russia's own spending.
Yeah.
And make them look more peaceful.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's really hard to say what the true intention behind that statement is.
Yeah.
But it definitely raises some eyebrows.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, think about it, though.
Yeah.
If you drastically reduce military capability,
yeah.
Does that reduce the risk of large-scale conflict?
Maybe.
Or does it actually create instability?
Yeah.
Because then you have power vacuums.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And countries might be emboldened.
Yeah, emboldened to take action.
To act more aggressively.
Yeah, because they don't see a deterrent.
They don't have that big, scary military to worry about.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, okay. Finally, let's turn to the question of how do we actually end this war?
Yeah, the big question.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made it clear
that Russia has no intention of ceasing military operations until agreements are reached that fully, satisfy their interests.
So then we have to ask, what are those interests?
Yeah.
What are they really after?
What are they really after?
Because it could be control over, certain territories.
Yeah, okay.
In eastern and southern Ukraine, guarantees against NATO expansion.
Right.
Formal recognition of Crimea's annexation. I mean, these are all possibilities.
Yeah.
But honestly, only the Kremlin truly knows.
Right. And what they say they want today.
Exactly. Yeah.
Might not be what they want tomorrow.
Right.
Depending on how the war is going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
International pressure.
Yeah.
The political situation at home. It's all very fluid.
So it's a lot to consider there.
Yeah.
So basically, we've gotten from this interview that Putin's view of this whole conflict is shaped by, a couple of things.
Number one, how he sees, Russia's security needs.
Right.
And then also how he understands, the power structures in the West.
Okay.
And then, he seems to have this belief that individual leaders can really shape world events.
Yeah.
He puts a lot of emphasis on that, it seems like.
He's big on the power of personality.
Yeah, exactly. And he did offer this vision of reduced military spending.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's genuine, maybe it's not.
Hard to say.
Yeah, we can't really know.
Right.
But yeah, and basically any path to peace is going to involve fulfilling Russia's interests.
Right. Which are still a bit of a mystery.
Which we don't fully understand, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's crucial to understand these core parts of Putin's thinking.
Yeah.
As you try to follow this conflict.
Absolutely.
And keep in mind, his perspective is only one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Absolutely.
The situation on the ground is constantly changing.
Right.
And everybody else's actions and perspectives matter too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not all about him.
Yeah, it's so multifaceted.
Exactly.
So to end this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
Based on everything we've talked about, Putin really seems to put a lot of weight on personal relationships with world leaders.
Absolutely.
So do you think, given that, that this could be a path to maybe, starting a dialogue and de-escalating the situation? Or is that just way too optimistic at this point?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's something to think about.
Yeah.
As we all try to, figure out what's going to happen in this war.
And how do we bring peace back to that part of the world?
Exactly. So anyway, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.